Welcome to AutoSave. I'm Camille Salazar-Hadway, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Mr. Nick Andrade. Bum, 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 bum.
New intro, love it.
Yeah.
But also, let's just talk about how this is near the end of God of War, Ragnarok. And I'm stoked. But I'm also sad because there's been parts of this game where as we get closer to the end, I think to myself, I don't want this game to end. And it makes me sad.
Well, thank you firstly for appreciating my efforts to make you feel like you are doing the walkout at a wrestling match. I worked
Cut
up
the music.
Yes, we are finally coming to the end of our journey of God of War Ragnarok. It's been a 10-episode journey, or 11-episode journey thus far. And now we're really going to see where all of the loose ends have left us, the conclusion of the game. But it was a journey, and on last week's episode...
Whoa! Will you help us attack Asgard?
I await the call.
Great! Hear that? All we have to do is call him with Gjallarhorn when we're ready.
So Atreus and Kratos went hunting to work through Atreus' emotions of losing Brock. After that, they went to rally the realms to put up a final fight against Odin, which led the pair to Surtur. They then managed to convince Surtur to become Ragnarok with a little help from Kratos' Blades of Chaos. And guess what? We are ready to go to Asgard. This week, we're covering Chapter 17, Realms at War. But before we find out how God of War will end, I gotta ask you, Nick.
Yeah.
Ragnarok's a pretty giant beast. Technically a giant because it's Surtur.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the thinking. Well, actually, no. This is producer Dylan actually got the thinking.
It is, yes.
About the grand characters in video games, the big otherworldly giant-sized characters in video games, and which ones are the best. So what is the best giant video game character you could think of, or characters if there's multiple?
So does Lady Dimitrescu count?
No. And especially when you can't say her name, no.
She's 9'6", though. She's 9'6".
Fine.
And she had quite a run during the what was it, 2021?
Yeah.
So yeah, she was loved by many a gamer. So I don't know if I'll say that because that might be too simpy.
You're ready.
I didn't even play Resident Evil, so I probably shouldn't say that. But I wanted to give you some heights here. So the tallest, I guess, character that I could find is Riftworm from Gears of War. 42,000 feet tall. I don't even know what that even...
I don't know what that means either.
42,000 feet? Seems like how far above Earth is that? Actually, wait, how... To get out of the Earth's atmosphere, do you know how much that is? I shouldn't ask these questions. This isn't a science podcast.
This is called AutoSave. It's not called Stratosphere Save.
So shout out Kratos, God of War, the originals. He's 1,600 feet, so he's huge.
Okay.
But Ridley from Metroid, also Super Smash Brothers, he's 13 feet tall. He's pretty tall fiend. But my absolute favorite is Centiskorch from Pokemon, who is 9'10". One of the biggest Pokemon, but also, would you want a centipede that's 9 feet tall running around? Probably
no, that's
scared.
freaking disgusting.
Right?
That's gross.
So none of these characters really are, apart from Kratos, I guess, are super talkative, I guess. They're mostly just bosses and enemies.
Okay.
Do you know any tall characters that actually speak a lot?
Yes.
I couldn't find much.
The character that came to my mind that I mean, they throw some words at you when you're facing them. And I'm surprised you didn't say this one, Nick. Well, actually, no, I'm not surprised. You're lame. But It would definitely be...
Jeez, okay.
It would definitely be Apocalypse from Marvel vs. Capcom, because that was one of the most iconic things playing that game. When you're fighting Apocalypse and then he gets giant or Onslaught, and then he turns into Apocalypse, and he's like giant, and then his hand just goes around the screen, and you have to like dodge his hand.
Yes. Okay.
And then he says he like throws some words at you as well.
So I just wanted to look up the tallest Pokemon because now I'm interested.
Your question why I called you lame. You're now looking up Pokemon's height.
How is that lame?
Yeah.
You just told me before the show how much you were swooning over a plastic Link at PAX East, okay? So don't go there with me.
Fine.
All right,
okay,
thank you.
Fine.
So Eternatus is the tallest Pokemon, 65 feet. All right?
I don't even know what Pokemon that is.
I know you. That's why. So I'm giving you a chance. The second tallest is someone that I think you could guess.
So is it like Dragonite or something like that?
No, it is Gen 3. Does that help?
Okay, I definitely do not know Gen 3. I do not know Gen 3 Pokemon.
Think of like a blue whale.
A Lapras? Lapras is Gen 1, right? Isn't Lapras Gen 1?
Sorry, I'm exposing you really bad right now. I'm so sorry. It's Whale Lord at 47 feet.
Okay, yeah. See,
Whale
that
Lord.
is why I stopped playing Pokemon, watching Pokemon.
I didn't know your extent of knowledge was only the first 150, so I apologize.
Well, the first 150 and a little bit of Gen 2 were the best Pokemon, just because I know them.
Fair enough.
But other than that, and other than my distaste for Pokemon sometimes, most of the time, we do have these giant characters, but like they usually bring these grand moments in video games. So I'm hoping as we get into God of War's ending, we learn this giant theatrical ending, because now we have Ragnarok a part of it. So let's jump into the final chapter of the game right after this break.
To feel your absence.
Culmination of love is grief. And yet we love, despite the inevitable. We open our hearts to it. When the pyre is spent, and you have gathered my ashes, spread them from the highest peak in all the realms. You will do this for me. To grieve deeply is to have loved fully. Open your heart to the world as you have opened it to me, and you will find every reason to keep living in it.
So back to Tyr's temple, we are at just outside of the actual temple, and Kratos prepares for battle that's ahead of him. So he's getting some well-deserved rest. I mean, this man has been on this journey forever. I swear to goodness, I've never really seen him sleep. But we know what that means, because the few times we have seen Kratos sleep, guess who appears? Faye. And Faye does enter his dreams, but this time not as creepily, which I was really happy about. This time we see her reinforcing or putting up the protection barrier that's around the forest that surrounds their home. And of course, Kratos is there helping. Interestingly enough, which kind of confused me at the beginning, we do hear at the start of this dream sequence, Kratos hearing Brock and Sindri and Atreus talk about Faye, but they're not in the scene. And I think this is actually the first Faye scene we hear other people who are not in the scene.
I think so. And I think it's probably a callback into everything that Kratos is feeling in terms of Brock's death. And then that kind of translate into what he's thinking about with Faye. And then they have a conversation. So I'm guessing that's why it's like at the forefront of his mind. But this cutscene with Faye, again, I'd like to see more of her, because I think everyone is really curious about who this character is. But again, they don't really tell us much. It kind of just sets up the point of before her death, she's setting up the barrier, and then she's talking about spreading her ashes to him at the highest peak. So, I mean, I don't really learn much apart from, their love for each other, but I've been hoping to kind of know more about her, and this still doesn't give me those answers.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, this is that, I guess, that moment when, because it seems like Kratos is just hearing this for the first time. So I'm guessing this is the first time that Faye mentions to Kratos her last wish. And we hear a conversation as well that this is something that mere mortals have to accept, death, because it's natural, right? Okay, this is the thing, right? Like, because she's talking about death and mere mortals. She's looking at Kratos as she's saying this line. Is this because Kratos technically, like, he's not immortal, but technically, if you think about how he climbed his way out of the gates of hell, he's kind of immortal.
Well, I think he is, no?
I guess so, right? He just ages slower.
I think he's a god now, though. I think that's what happened, right?
Yes.
He became a god.
Yes.
So
yes.
I guess he is technically immortal. I don't know, but she's painting the picture as if she is mortal. So I understand why Kratos thought she was mortal this whole time. He clearly didn't know that much about her past. We found out just a little bit of it in some side missions throughout this game where she fought Thor in this never-ending battle in Alfheim, I believe. Like, how is she dying? Why is she dying? What exactly is going on? Because she is a giant. I don't really understand.
I don't think she is dying in this moment. I think she may, like giants, we know so much about them, about seeing the future or seeing into the present and the future, whatever that means. But maybe she just knows how her story will end. But you see Kratos in this moment, he is hesitant. He doesn't want to even speak about the possibility of Faye not being in the picture because he says that he will lose a part of him will die along with Faye. And they actually embrace in this moment. And this is the closest we've actually seen them kind of be like intimate towards each other and show that love. And I really like how the game left this for that last, moments we see Faye. Also, weird thing, I don't know. At this point of the game when I was going through, I'm like, ooh, someone's gonna die again. Like, is it gonna be Kratos? So when you see Faye embrace Kratos, it starts to transition back to him lying in his tent. And that scene, because it's like Faye putting Kratos down to sleep, but it's also very stiff, and just how the background changes, it looks like Kratos is in a tomb. So I don't know if that's foreshadowing Kratos' future. But it definitely, for me, I was like, oh no, Kratos is going to die. I'm not ready.
It's a good point, but if you've seen him sleep throughout the series, he literally sleeps like he's in a coffin. He sleeps with his hands folded in and on his back. He could be a vampire. I don't know.
Kratos, the vampire god of war. Who knows?
Next sequel.
But when Kratos wakes up, he sees Atreus next to him, who has fallen asleep the night before after Kratos told him a bedtime story, which it's like, now I see Atreus as
so cute.
A young man, but he still needs the comfort of his father because he, instead of staying in his tent, went to Kratos' tent and wanted to hear his story. So it was really cute. And I think that's really reflective. I don't know about you, but I know when I go to my parents, I act like I can't do anything, like I'm a kid. And then they spoil me. So...
I mean, yeah, I guess my mom always did my laundry and stuff, cooked for me, all that stuff. So I guess that aspect.
Yeah, you kind of turn back into the kid that you grew up with around your parents, right? When you're with them. Yeah. So this is that really cute reminder of that. But we don't have that moment for long because after the dream, Kratos wakes up and it is time for battle. Kratos and Atreus exit their tent in the campsite that's set up by Freyr, and their forces. And in this campsite, we actually see the Valkyries who've been freed from Odin's corruption. And they still look as creepily as ever. I don't know. It's something about their eyes, like their mask.
I think they look badass.
And their eyes have blood, or just stains dripping from the mask.
Sick.
And it creeps me out. And we also see that this is all because of Freya's Vanir magic, and apparently a lot of it. Included in the Valkyries, we see Sigrun, who we fought in 2018's God of War and also is Mimir's love interest. So it's really great that she's seeing clearly and not trying to kill us this time around. And they actually are able to share like a final moment as well, which is cute.
We can't just brush past that though. She literally takes his head and she's like, "Tell me a story, Mimir," and they go into their tent while romantically.
I mean, that's not weird. They just want to spend some time together.
I didn't say it's just funny because it's this just head that she's holding holding
Poor
up.
Mimir.
And he's like, "Let me tell you a story, lass."
Mimir is more than a head, okay? He is a person with personalities. Yeah. But more importantly, what happens the night before the battle, we see Freya asking Kratos to be the leader that they need, these forces need, because now they have all the realm's backings, except they haven't heard from the dwarfs yet, but they need someone to kind of, as the glue, to come together and really help the direction for this war. And Kratos is hesitant at this moment. He doesn't know. And now that he had the night to think about it, he actually wakes up and he tells Freya that he will be their general. Now, this is something that is very... I think it's important because this is kind of where we saw Kratos at the beginning of Kratos' journey, like before 2018's game, like the first games of God of War, he was a general for the Spartan army. And now we're seeing him go back and becoming a general. We know that led him in the past down the wrong path because Deimos died and then he sought revenge. And I'm just curious, are we going to see that again here? Will we see the General Kratos go down the wrong path because maybe someone close to him will be lost in battle?
No, I don't think so. He was hesitant to take this up because he didn't want to be a general again, because I guess he's hesitant after everything that he's been through. But I think he's been through enough, and I think he has developed substantially in terms of who he used to be, even who he used to be in God of War 2018, that I don't foresee that happening, even if there is, the death of Atreus, the death of Freya, whoever dies potentially in Ragnarok. I don't see him, going berserk because of it. I think he's accepted everything.
If it was Atreus that died, he would so go berserk. If someone close to him bit the bullet in war, I think he would not be able to handle the emotions at that time. We already saw how he was with Heimdall. Yes, he wanted to punch the living guts out of Heimdall, but I think there was a moment where he did go further than he thought, which showed even how far he progressed as like a god that is trying to avoid war. That side of him is still there. It's still a part of him. So for me, that's why this moment really stood out, because I'm like, oh man, this is now General Kratos, and he was relentless. And, it led him down his whole story because of what happened in the events of the first game. So I don't know. Just something to think about. We'll have to see. But we do see that General Kratos and his group go to Tyr's temple to open up the realms with Gjallarhorn.
I do not want this war. We have suffered enough. Prophecy did not lead us here, nor will it win this battle. Wars are won by those that are willing to sacrifice everything. If that is the cost of vengeance, so be it.
Odin has taken so much from us already. The realms have suffered enough, no matter the cost. This ends today.
If going out in a blaze of glory means that Odin burns too, that's where I'll be. A big, fat smile on my face.
For Brock.
gives me chills because this is a reminder where everyone in this game is reminding us why they're here. And you hear Atreus say, for Brock. And with that, we head to Asgard and we see that the battle has already started. There is smoke in the air. Last time we were in Asgard, it was sunny. It was beautiful. No, all hell's broke loose because all the realms are here to show up and they're fighting outside the walls of Asgard. And we actually see Muspelheim's tower has fell. So we now see Odin's forces is targeting Niflheim's tower. And honestly, they're trying to stop Ragnarok. This does not look good for all the realms, for our fight. We also hear Freyr call Ingrid back, which is really cool because it was briefly mentioned that Ingrid belongs to Freyr, but we saw this moment where he calls for Ingrid to come back to him and then he goes off and fight. I don't know, it just was really cool. But we need to stop Niflheim Tower from being destroyed. So the plan is to go and attack the war machines that are targeting the towers. So Kratos, Freya make their way to them while Atreus and Hildisvini watch their flanks. This was just a really cool scene because when you come into Asgard, you're just plopped right in the middle of it.
We go from that incredibly touching clip that we just listened to of raising the banners, I guess, and I just felt so emotional in that moment. And then they blow Gjallarhorn, and then you see all of the realms kind of light up, and then you're in Asgard, and then all of a sudden you just are plunked right into it. They're already fighting. Everything's going on. It's chaos, and you just have to roll with it.
You have to roll with it. And we also see some familiar faces as well. We see Angrboda and Fenrir in battle too, which is really cool. We also see that there are a lot of Einherjars here, like just battling. So as you're making your way to the war machines, which by the way, I kept thinking of Iron Man when they said war machines.
Oh, did you?
You have to actually battle your way through the Einherjar as well. There's going to be other forces like captains and ogres that will be in the way. But we briefly see Niflheim Tower is falling, and this just lights the fire under our asses because we have to be quick to get to the war machines because they are getting exactly, Odin and his forces are getting exactly what they want. As you continue through this sequence, you'll see a familiar serpent fighting Thor. Yes, that's right. Jormungandr makes an appearance in the background. And this is the scene that was prophesied earlier in the game, where it stated that Jormungandr and Thor will fight, that will have Thor pretty much have Jormungandr go through time. We even hear Kratos call out to the fact that the snake looks different from before, which is really cool because it is a different snake. This is actually the snake that Atreus whispered the giant soul in. So this was confusing to kind of understand, but it was definitely cool to watch.
I don't understand any of it one bit whatsoever. I know Thor and Jormungandr fight until the end of time, but is it? Mm-hmm. It's this moment. It was confusing to me, and then again, Jormungandr gets sent back in time because so Thor brings Jormungandr back in time, and then that's when we meet him the first time in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But then this is okay. I kind of understand, but not really.
Yeah. So, like in 2018, when we first meet Jormungandr, we hear. Like Kratos says that to Atreus that it seems like the serpent is familiar with you.
Yes.
And this is the reason why, because Atreus is the one who whispered the soul of Jormungandr into this serpent. And then that becomes the giant Jormungandr that gets knocked back into the past. But because he cannot speak.
Well, he spoke, didn't he?
Wait, he did speak, didn't he? Why didn't he just say... Why did he just say, hey, I know you?
But think about it, though. They never really had a conversation.
No.
Atreus breathes life into the snake,
mm-hmm.
and then the snake slithers away. So he never interacts with him other than that. And then we also notice that Kratos never does. So that's why he's not familiar with him when he gets back in time. So now it does make sense. He's familiar with him.
But at the beginning of this game, they do speak.
But that's the one that they've met already.
Yes, that's the one they met already.
The one that goes in time when they first see them.
No, I think you got it. The snake that he whispered,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
That gets knocked back into 2018's game.
Right. But what I'm saying is, in 2018, when Atreus first meets, he only recognizes Atreus because they never had a conversation, is what I'm saying.
But they had. Well,
No, because that's the future.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. This is why we can't deal with time travel.
It's really confusing. This is why time travel doesn't work in a lot of things. Like, time travel seems to be in a lot of media, but it's got to be used correctly, because then we get things like this.
And I feel like for this too, it could have been really dicey if they didn't explain the time traveling part. Right. I'm glad it was like a little component of the game and not like a huge factor. But nevertheless, you see this on this grand scale with this ship and Jormungandr fighting Thor. And I actually realized, I think a lot of the prophesized scenes are always made in like big shots in the game.
Yeah.
Like to make it to scale as you see it in the shrine. So a little cool tidbit. But from there, Sindri finally makes it to the battlefield, but he is alone. The dwarves are not with him because he decided that no other dwarves will die for this fight. And instead, he brought a hammer. I don't know. He brought a hammer that is going to shatter the war machines, which brings hope to the group. However...
Oh, close your heart to it. Close your heart.
Who are they?
Midgardians. Odin took them in. They shouldn't be here. They're not soldiers.
Odin put them on our path to die.
It's war. Wars are won by those who are willing to sacrifice everything. What are you doing?
Son, listen closely. You feel their pain because that is who you are. And you must never sacrifice that. Never. Not for anyone. I was wrong, Atreus. I was wrong. Open your heart. Open your heart to their suffering. That is your mother's wish. And mine as well. Today, son. Today, we will be better.
It's a very sad moment because we see Sindri's actions to destroy the war machines have killed innocent Midgardians who've been put in the way to slow Kratos and Atreus down by Odin, by the way. So Kratos speaks about seeking justice and not vengeance in this moment, because now that they have the war machines destroyed, we hear Atreus really trying to shut out the casualties of war. And this is something that Kratos has talked to him about before, to shut it all out because you have to focus on the objective. But now we hear Kratos backtracking, and I think it goes back to the discussion about justice, not vengeance. Justice is when you do the right thing, but vengeance is really about the aggression, the rage filled retaliation that we've seen Kratos take part in the past, in previous games, and even in this game as well. And now he's really trying to set a new path and help Atreus guide him. He wants Atreus to be who he is, continue to empathize with those around him. And I think here we're really seeing Atreus and the lesson that he taught Kratos in full action.
This is probably the most emotional scene that I can remember from this game. I think I got pretty teary-eyed when he's talking about opening your heart and, feeling empathy of others. And and taking their pain and feeling their pain. And I think that's, something that Atreus is naturally a good kid who has good morals. And, right at the beginning of the game, not the beginning of the game, but the beginning of the series in 2018, you see Atreus, doesn't want to kill animals, is always sad about things dying, or Fenrir at the beginning of this game passing away. He can't handle it emotionally. But Kratos basically says, like, no, this is something that you need. You need to be empathetic. You need to feel these things that other people feel, or else you turn out like me. And I think it's important that he's kind of just saying, like, if in case he dies here, you need to remember this value. And it's very important. And for me, it was just super emotional. And then at the same time, too, we see truly who Odin is in all his glory, in terms of the reason why he rescued and saved these Midgardians from Fimbulwinter earlier is because he just wanted them to stand in the way of Freya's army so that it could stall them. And if you're willing to throw those lives away for nothing, then you truly see who this god is. And is he really a god if he can throw away lives like that? It's questionable.
Yeah. And you do mention Freya, and I want to briefly talk about her because her reaction to trying to find a new way to go and get Odin without, going in with the full force you have, because Odin's troops is pretty powerful, but instead being more careful of the innocent lives that are in the way. Freya, I think, is going through her vengeance path. I don't think we've actually seen her make the transition from vengeance to, as Kratos would say, justice. Even at the beginning of the game, she is very hurt. She is still mourning the loss of Baldur. And even if their friendships mended, I think she's still caught in that moment. We might have talked about it. And I think in that moment when they become friends, like, oh, look, this is her growing. But I don't think she really has grown. She's just focused more on the target. Even though, like, she's not completely upset here, her concern, she doesn't actually say she's concerned about the innocent lives. Her concern is Odin. And I think that is making it hard for her to see that other people are also affected here.
My only thing here is I don't think, like, she doesn't have to be, I don't know, not everyone has to be just here. And her just cause, like, that she wants vengeance, I think that's okay, unfortunately, to say. But, I guess this is just a video game. We're not actually talking about real lives. If we were, then maybe it's a different thing. But just in the context of this game, I think it's okay that she has vengeance on her mind. She's been through a lot. She's lost her son. And she understands, I think, she's been through wars with Odin before, that he does these kind of things and he has tactics like this. And although I'm not condoning anything that she's doing, but I think it's okay that she has only vengeance on her mind. I'm not sure that everyone has to grow in a certain way in this game for us to feel good about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we'll feel good with everything every character does at all. I think it's just important to recognize where their mindset is, because then it will justify, in a sense, why they do the things they do. From there, the group splits up to distract Ragnarok, help the Midgardians to get to safety and cover, and Atreus and Sindri head towards the flaw in an attempt to break down the wall, keeping the gods of Asgard safe. And we get this moment to play as Atreus. I really like this because it didn't feel forced. We see, I guess, a huge rock or a side of the cliff starts to fall, and Kratos has to hold it and tells Atreus to go. So there's a reason there why we're going back and playing as Atreus, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I like kind of switching back and forth with the main characters. This isn't just sticking with Kratos. We get to see both of them in action, which is really cool. I also want to point out Sindri's here, but he is far from our friend still. He's doing this because he, knows that this is the best course of action, and he does want revenge for Brock, but he is in no means being nice to Atreus whatsoever. Their relationship is still pretty broken.
Yeah, we see, like, Atreus try to help Sindri get up a cliff, and Sindri just kind of smacks his hand out of the way. So we see that for Sindri, he's still mourning Brock's loss. And we also find Thrud, who is mourning the loss of her friendship with Atreus.
You really had me believing you that we didn't have to be enemies.
Thrud, you're okay.
My mom was right about you all along. You're a killer just like your father, and you're here to kill us all.
No, just Odin. Sindri, don't! She's a friend.
Friends don't bring the end of the world to each other's doorstep, Loki!
You're right. You're right. I made some bad decisions.
You do that a lot. I'm not sure that's a defense.
It's not a defense. I just want to make it right. Is Skilder okay? Have you seen him?
Why wouldn't he be? What are you talking about?
Odin is willing to sacrifice the Midgardians. He put them along the wall to try and deter us, knowing they can't fight. Their deaths are just meant to slow us down.
Why would he do that? And how am I supposed to believe you?
Because he's right. It's who Odin is. It's who he's always been.
Mom, why are you here? What?
He'll sacrifice anyone at a problem in front of him. The Midgardians. Your friend. Our family, any of us. I'd hoped that your father would stand up to him, but now it has to be you.
Mom, what are you saying?
Thrud. I never doubted that you would make the finest Valkyrie these realms have ever seen. But not for him.
So now Thrud finally has her eyes open, and thankfully that's with the help of Sif. Thrud now realizes that Odin did not have their best interest or the people's best interest in mind at all, and he's been actually using everyone all along, especially the Midgardians and, of course, Thor. We also see Sif vocalize that she actually never had any doubts in Thrud's ability to become a Valkyrie. More so, she was concerned that Thrud would serve under Odin, knowing how manipulative that Odin could be.
I feel like if this was a Marvel movie and Sif came out, this is where the audience would like start cheering.
Oh, really?
When she basically says, no, Odin is actually bad. But good on her, because we see Sif earlier in the game not trusting Loki and still mad about Magni and Modi, and basically tell Odin, like, hey, like it basically gets Thor pissed off at Atreus again. So it's funny to see that side, but then also throughout the game, we've kind of seen her raise her concerns with Thor and Thrud and their relationships with Odin. So it's great to see that she's now on our side at the perfect time. I guess, you know, the end of the world kind of maybe puts things into perspective, but to tell her daughter all these things, and especially, you know, I don't think Thrud was going to believe anything Atreus was going to say at this point. So thank God that she stepped in and made her realize exactly what's going on.
I think what it is, it's like we're seeing these characters, they don't want to believe that the Allfather is not just, in a sense, or not for the people, not for the best interest of the Midgardians or even the other Aesir gods, right? They kind of have to experience it. And unfortunately, Thrud does experience it by seeing Sköldur injured and hearing it from someone she trusts, her mother.
I think many generations or hundreds of years has gone by since Tyr's rebellion, since a bunch of other wars. I think Odin has crushed all of that. And so like Thrud and obviously the Midgardians, whatever, they've never seen the Allfather in this light. But I think Thor and Siv and other people obviously know what Odin is capable of, but they don't, because they've never seen it.
I agree. And I do. I agree. Like, so time could actually be a really interesting tool, right? Because you could put into place your own stories, and there are good stories of Odin, right? Like we see that with the Midgardians, how Odin saved them from Fimbulwinter, but then if they didn't survive to tell the rest of it, or we didn't see it firsthand, we wouldn't have known that he was using them as a barrier, essentially. Now, with that said, Sif goes to help out other Midgardians with Skolder, and Thrud joins us in hopes of speaking some sense into her father, which let's hope that works because we know that a Thor battle is coming up. Sindri finally uses his hammer to crack the flaw and brings the whole wall separating the gods from the common folk down. And after the break, we're going to see what's on the other side of the fault. As we continue through, we hear from Freyr, who tells us that Ragnarok isn't listening and instead is mindlessly attacking. And it looks like that this is probably caused to the fact that we didn't merge him properly. We actually used the Blades of Chaos to create Ragnarok and, in a sense, created Frankenstein's monster at this point.
That's a good point that I didn't even think about. But yeah, I think that's the reason why Ragnarok is out of control. It doesn't have like Sinmara's mind or soul or body or whatever that's helping Surtur. So yeah, that's probably, I never really put two and two together, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So again, like kind of, we probably are at fault for this as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Another thing to add to the list. So as we are making our way through to continue to Odin, we actually see Thor and Jormungandr fight up close. And this is the point where Thor knocks Jormungandr into the past because he just like zips out of the past. I don't know. It was really cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And this is leading us into a boss battle with Thor. But before that happens, Kratos sends Atreus and Thrud to get the mask because we know that this is very important to Odin. So maybe we could use it as some leverage. So as we go into this Thor fight, it is just Kratos and Thor. And by golly gee, this was fun. I really enjoyed this fight.
It was really fun. However, I pose a question to you.
Okay.
Which Thor fight is better? This Thor fight or the first Thor fight at the beginning of the game? Because a lot of people online specifically love the first fight. Yeah. I really enjoyed this one as well because I think it was a mastermind of what Thor's powers actually were compared to the original one in the beginning where he wants Kratos to attack him. Now this time Thor's like, let me show you what I got.
That's a tough one, but I do think I prefer the first fight. There's something in seeing a character for the first time and the anticipation of battling the character for the first time. There was huge anticipation from the 2018 game that we're going to face off against Thor. And when you first get that interaction, I think that plays into how much that battle means as a player. For this one, though, it is a fun battle. My thing is, how many times is Thor going to get stabbed in the tummy? His little tum-tum, that's not so little. Like, he gets stabbed so many times from that even first battle that we face off with him. And, like, he just pulls out the knife, Leviathan, and then he just, like, goes on his merry way.
It's just...
continues fighting.
Clearly, there's some barrier there. He has a shield almost, but it's a big target, so it's not hard to miss.
It's not hard to miss. Something that's very easy to miss is these lightning circles that Thor throws onto the ground. I got caught up in those quite a bit, so stay away from the lightning circles.
Again, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but as we got into these battles, there was basically only one or two side bosses that I hadn't beaten yet before I got here. So my Kratos character specifically was so decked out.
Oh,
full
my gosh.
health. Everything was capped level 9 armor wise. I think I had a bunch of regeneration items. So my health just kept ticking up every so often. So Thor, who is Thor? Okay, because Nick came to beat his ass down.
And Kratos did the same thing. I think Kratos came to do the same thing. But throughout the battle, you do hear Kratos trying to plead with Thor to stop because of the friendship of their kids, right? But Thor is just seeing red at this point. He actually thought that Kratos was trying to attack Thrud at the beginning of this fight. And he's just taking all, I think, his collective frustrations that we've talked about in previous episodes out on Kratos in this moment. But we do battle him out. And we do finally defeat him.
Don't you know what I've done? Yes! But what will you do now? We don't change. Destroy us! No more. No more. For the sake of our children, we must be better.
Why isn't he dead? Are you talking? Who told you to do that? You don't talk! You don't think! I think, you kill! It's a simple fucking concept!
Sif was right about you. I just didn't want to see it.
What is this? Are you broken? I am your father. Take the hammer and kill who I tell you to kill!
No.
I didn't want this. I did not want this.
So that is right. Thor is now dead, but moments before Thor's death, Thor is now dead. But moments before Thor's death, we actually hear him talking about we are not able to change. He goes from I cannot change to we cannot change. And you and I spoke about the similarities between Kratos and Thor, but it looks like we weren't the only ones that saw those similarities. Thor saw them as well. And he is what Kratos essentially could have been if Kratos really fell down that path of vengeance rather than justice.
That's a great point. Honestly, this is the version of Kratos we might have seen if he didn't, I don't know, develop a heart, develop a soul almost. You know, maybe Faye comes into this. Obviously, Atreus comes into this as well. But it's such a turning point to see throughout the Thor boss battle how Kratos was trying to plead with Thor. And like you said, Thor is seeing red. But you've just seen how far Kratos has come. And then Thor saying, we. I don't think that's, again, that is not fair at all because Kratos is a different person than Thor. But Thor doesn't see this because they are both world destroyers. They have both murdered countless of gods, giants, enemies, whatever it is. So they are the same in that sense, but Kratos has finally realized who he wants to be. Whereas Thor didn't necessarily understand that until the very end, which unfortunately for him, that is when Odin decides to kill him, when he kind of starts to turn and realize that he needs to be there for his family. Odin, doesn't like that because he's always Odin's shield, basically. And if you don't listen to what he does, then you see what happens to Thor. So,
yeah, and we see, like you said, those final moments, we see Thor stand up to Odin, put down his hammer, and say that enough is enough, and then get stabbed into the chest, which surprisingly, not the belly. Not the belly for his final demise.
Unfortunately, I guess it would take a lot more if he went through the belly. But I did see this the whole game with them starting to sprinkle in Thor having maybe guilt is the word. So you first see him with Atreus. They start building a sort of bond a little bit. And then you see Thrud and Sif, and you see Sif, telling Thor that he needs to change. And then you see the whole scene. I think that's why I was taken aback as why we went to the tavern and that scene to deal with drunk Thor. I was like, why is this? But it was planting the seeds that maybe Thor doesn't like what's going on. And I think that's why we've seen Atreus in the past. He sneaks up on Thor and Odin having conversation, and you see Odin belittling Thor. You see Thor kind of questioning things. It was all to build up to this moment where he was starting to understand that he needed to overthrow Odin. But the only problem is Odin is a lot smarter than that and got to it way quicker.
Yeah, and The thing is, too, in this moment, even during the Thor battle, we do hear him say little tidbits about Atreus, how he actually was starting to like him, right? So, yeah, I think he had those seeds of doubts. But again, he talks about this we. And yes, I think that it is the similarity between him and Kratos, but also maybe it's the we in terms of the Aesir gods. They cannot change because of Odin, which is very interesting.
Thank God that Thrud saw Odin kill Thor, because she didn't want to believe anything until this moment where she sees her father get killed and knows, despite Odin's, trying to cover it up, she knows, like, okay, this is who he is.
Yeah, and you're right. Thrud does see all of this going down, and Odin actually throws Mjolnir because in the quick moment when Thor dies, you see both Odin and Thrud look at Mjolnir. So I think Thrud was actually going to try to pick up Thor's hammer and attack Odin, but Odin picks it up. So that whole idea that Mjolnir, you have to be worthy, we know Odin is not worthy. I guess that's a lie, because he just picks up Mjolnir and throws it at Thrud. And Odin describes this as protecting Thrud by getting her out of this fight. But with that said, it is time for the Odin boss battle. Like, this is what we've been waiting for as well. We've never faced off against him at all. So this is the first time we're encountering Odin on the battlefield. How did it feel for you? All powerful Nick?
No, all powerful Nick as Kratos, but this was still, relatively difficult. You kind of see the power of Odin here. His staff is beyond anything I've comprehended in this game so far, and then he's kind of floating, hovering, flying. I don't know exactly how to...
He hovers. He's magical.
Yes. It just, you can see that this is what we've been waiting for, and I think it lives up to the hype.
Yeah, it's like, like old, like retro games, how like you have the warlock behind the brute. That is literally the equation that they went through for this sequence of battles. And I enjoyed it. I really like fighting Odin because he is using a lot of that Asgardian magic.
Yes.
And I found it because he hovers quite a bit. It's hard to actually predict his movements. Whereas Thor, if he's like reaching up in the air, he's about to go up in the air and then do his strike down. And then you have the red circles to kind of hint you to that. Where I found with Odin, a lot of his attacks are with him just floating and they kind of all look the same. So it's harder to predict if you're supposed to dodge in this moment where you're supposed to go, which made his ground like explosion attacks, the purple explosion.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to call it, but those were the worst because if you're in the middle of like a certain part of the ground and like you have to run off of it, you just have to make sure you're getting off those as quick as possible.
When you go from a Thor fight to an Odin fight, you can tell how much faster Odin is compared to Thor. Like you said, you can predict Thor's attacks, and here again, he's a lot more sporadic, and you can kind of see the power that he wields and how fast he can get magic off. So if you're not paying attention, it can be very difficult. You have to time your attacks again perfectly. This is closer to Heimdall's fight than I would say Thor's fight because they kind of feel the same almost.
And Odin's a jerk throughout this fight because he's telling Loki that Thor's death is actually on Loki. It's on Atreus. And the reason, and it's Atreus that turned his whole family against him when really it's his own actions. So he's still not able to accept blame for anything, even though a god is supposed to know everything and be all knowing. He clearly can't see the truth behind his ego.
He's a piece of shit, basically. Let's just call it what
much.
It is. He is the worst god. Well, is he worse than Zeus? I would say so. Maybe.
Zeus was pretty bad too.
Maybe that's a conversation for the next episode.
That's a conversation for the next episode. But, we see that Kratos' Leviathan finally cuts through Odin's ego and rips him a new one. He pretty much stabs him right here. And thankfully, Freya shows up. There's a few things that happen here. Firstly, Freya literally has Odin in the palms of her hands thanks to a binding spell. And she pretty much just gets this moment to tell Odin everything that's on her mind. And really it is that he no longer has a hold over her. Do we think she's seeking vengeance here or justice.
Oh, vengeance, 1000%. You can tell by the tone of her voice. And she's almost it's very theatrical, which I love. Also, the binding spell is from the noose that we collected before we saw the Norns, which was this whole, I guess, little storyline that we didn't know too much about, but he tried to hang himself.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
One point. Anyway, she has the noose, uses it. It's like connected through a spell, which is really cool. And I mean, she has it right there, but it's almost that key like villain trope where they explain everything that happens before they kill you, and then you get thwarted. It almost happened with Freya here. It gives Odin some time to stall. But however, that whole scene is badass, and her whole monologue is incredible. And when her falcon wings come out, it's just like, it's epic. And I love that
Valkyrie
Freya.
wings.
Yes.
Valkyrie wings, which is really cool because then you're really seeing her as she is. And Odin is forced to see her as she is, a strong, powerful Valkyrie queen that doesn't need him. But with that, yes, she totally did that trope where she explained too much. Odin ends up throwing, I guess, one of his ravens at Freya. And then that essentially causes a distraction and allows him to break the floor where he is kind of kneeled down on. And all of them fall down. When the floor falls, it actually leads to the cavern where the realm tear is.
You did it, Loki. No. No more fighting. No. None of that matters now. This is your moment, Loki. Groa tried to hide you from me, but this is your destiny. Champion of the Jotnar. Only he can put on the mask. Only he can gaze into the truth of creation. Unfold the secrets of life and death. No more doubt, no more confusion. You were born for this. Put on the mask, Loki. Ask it the question.
This is your choice, son. I trust you.
Why did you do that? What was it all for? You choose to be nothing!
He finally learned why Odin needed Loki this whole time. It was because only the champion could look into the tear with the mask. I think this is that first time we're ever hearing that.
So is that a prophecy that he knew about? Because that's what it sounds like to me, where he's basically saying only the champion of the Jotnar can put on the mask. Why would Odin kill all the giants then, if he knew he needed the champion of the Jotnar to
he probably knew Loki was the champion, because he says Groa was trying to hide Atreus. Right? So that means Odin knew the giants that were around were not the champions. Or maybe he was trying to pick through the giants to find his champion. And he found out Groa was hiding this champion who happened to be Atreus/Loki. And he just decided to, I guess, manipulate the situation, because really it is the fact that Atreus knew nothing about his giant past that led him to Odin.
Right.
If there were giants around, he would have never went to Odin on his own, because he wouldn't have sought that knowledge. Where even if Odin didn't have any answers about the giants, I think Odin could have manipulated the situation by saying, well, this realm tear, if you get this mask, you'll find out everything you need to know, because it has all this knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But you see that he's very hurt when Atreus decides not to look.
I think that's an understatement. That's something that he's been trying to do for thousands of years.
Yeah, true.
So I think he wants to probably murder us. But kudos to Kratos here in this situation where we hear him saying, it's up to you, Atreus. I believe in any decision you make. That's huge, because this could have ramifications for whatever decision he makes. And Kratos is willing to put that in the hands of Atreus because he trusts him. Everything that's happened has culminated into that moment of Atreus having this decision to make. I'm sad, actually, that he broke the mask because I was so curious to see what the hell this realm tear was all about. So I was really disappointed by that.
Yeah, it led to this moment for Atreus to choose. And I think as players, like we also were listening to the possibilities of this mask and the curiosity of what's behind it. What is it all for? We want to know as well. Like, was it worth it really for Odin to go through all this trouble? And we will never know that because Atreus, and this is something Kratos says, everyone has the right to choose. And Atreus had the right to choose here, and he chose not to continue to seek that knowledge, which led him in trouble in the beginning of this game. We've seen that. He chose to run out, find Odin, seek this knowledge, and continue doing that behind his father's back, or just be satisfied with what he already knows and grow as a character from there. And, to be satisfied, I think, just shows his maturity, and that he's now a young man. But this does lead us with the Odin boss fight. There's 2 more cycles of this fight, and it is tough because there's a lot going on, especially in that 3rd cycle. There's like fire orbs, which I hated, by the way, because they just follow you around. But there's a lot just happening on the screen that I think could distract you from the attacks. And you also have to get close to Odin because he puts these elemental shields up, which you have to break as well. But it is fun. It was a very good, I feel like, boss fight here.
Yeah, this is, I guess, Odin unleashed everything that he's been holding back. We get to kind of see his full potential and his full power. And yeah, it's just a lot of attacks constantly. And again, this is the magic, the fire orbs, the shields, everything is different colors. Like it's a lot. And especially Odin still stays far away from you while he's casting all of these things. So you have to find a way to get close.
Yeah, and he has a long range as well. That was the other thing. So even if you're far away from Odin, he could still hit you with every attack. So that was the frustrating thing, because usually you could use that distance to get the upper hand. But if you're all-powerful Nick's Kratos, then you're fine.
But Cam, did you use, because I know that you don't use the Draupnir spear as much as I do, but to me, this was the most useful item when you're facing someone who is long range. It's the most useful weapon to use.
Yes, and I did use it because of that. But I still was trying to stick with the Blades of Chaos because they're so cool. But with that said, after 2 more cycles with Odin, you finally defeat him.
This was our chance, Loki. I could have had my answers. I could have learned the truth. You took that away from me. I could have made things better. We could have made the 9 realms better.
This was never about the realms or me. It was about you.
You destroyed everything. My home, my family, my kingdom.
You did those things. Your choices. You killed your own son.
It wasn't my choice. I had no choice.
There's always a choice. You have to stop. You can choose to be better.
No, I can't. I have to know what happens next. I will never stop.
Why'd you have to say that? Sofna. Apfra. Desu. Sofna. Hithan. Sofna. Sofna. Sofna.
So we see Atreus whisper Odin's soul into a marble, and we see Kratos finally gives Freya the option that he took away from Freya when he killed Baldur. He gives her the option between life and death, and she decides that she doesn't need to destroy it anymore, so she gives it back to Kratos. And I think this is her transformation to justice rather than vengeance. I think, her moment she had with Odin before, that was what she needed. So I thought that was pretty cool. One thing about this, though, I did think it was weird that Atreus was pleading with Odin right before he whispered his soul, because I'm like, he already told Thrud that he only wants to kill Odin, right? But I guess this is just, again, what Kratos echoed with Atreus not closing off your heart.
Yeah, he wanted to save him, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did have a connection throughout this game. So I think Atreus was hoping that Odin was better than this, that maybe confronted with his fate or the end of himself, that he would choose to maybe change, I guess. But clearly that wouldn't happen. But you know what? We talk about choice in this game throughout, from the beginning to end, and it's all about our choices and what we're making. And Sindri doesn't give us that choice. Sindri makes the choice for us and crushes the marble, which I think is pretty telling, just how much what he's going through right now. But I just find it funny that Atreus is posed with a choice, Kratos, all of them, on what to do with Odin, and Sindri says, no, I'm going to decide for us. Fuck you.
Yeah. And like you said, Sindri does show up and end up crushing the marble. And I think that is the flip side. Like, he's showing us that he's still seeking vengeance. Yes. He's still mourning. He is still hurt. Whereas Kratos, Atreus, and Freya are now satisfied with just the justice of it all.
But Cam, that's like, Freya up to this point wasn't. So it clearly was like she got her moment. Sindri hasn't had his moment to fully accept anything. And it's funny to see. It's like every one of these characters have gone through this vengeance / pain kind of reality. Atreus killed Modi. I think Kratos has kind of battled this throughout. Freya, same thing. And then Sindri now still hasn't. And maybe this will get him some sort of peace, but I'm not really sure.
I will play devil's advocate in maybe saying that Sindri took that choice away from him when he took Brock's choice away from him.
Oh, great point. Yep. I think that's,
Yeah. So 1000%. I think, similar to how Brock doesn't now, he can't even have an afterlife because he's not complete. I think Sindri's feeling that void too, because he never let Brock know what was going on. He took that choice away. So as a result, now his choice is taken away. He's kind of at a loss. I don't think he'll ever feel resolved in any sense.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts. But with that said, we actually see Ragnarok appear and still in Frankenstein's monster mode, just destroying everything, and is about to destroy Asgard. But we have no way out. And luckily, Freyr shows up to hold Ragnarok back. And also, Angrboda and Fenrir, they also show up as well to provide a way for us to escape, but we could only do so with the sacrifice of Freyr. Now, while we're leaving, Loki blacks out from the explosion as he escapes into this, warp thing that Angrboda does, how we've been transporting everywhere. And we wake up in Hodmiss's Holt, which is pretty much where everyone is, where they're recovering. And Atreus wakes up to find Kratos. Along the way, we see everyone from the battle. Amongst them is Thrud and Sif. And we learn that the Aesir gods are going to go to Vanaheim. And Thrud is looking for something. I think she's looking for Mjolnir. I don't know. She says that she's looking for something. I think it's Mjolnir. I think she wants to be Lady Thor, the god of thunder, and take up that mantle. And Freya is sad, obviously, because of Freyr's sacrifice. However, she kind of finds some solace in the fact that she is happy with the family that she chose. I thought there would have been more mourning for Freyr, but I guess because he did go out in battle, and he had that choice that he made himself, it's okay.
So this whole scene, I think we're not doing it enough justice, because I don't know what was going on for a while. And so what do you mean? So Freyr sacrifices himself, okay? Then they go through the realm tear. And then there's like this white light, and then you see Atreus back, and he's in the camp. So one, I'm thinking he's dead. Okay?
What?
I think he died at that point.
What? Really?
Yes. 2, and then I'm starting to think we're walking. We're seeing everybody that we know along the way. We see Freya. We see Thrud. Everyone's alive.
I haven't got there yet, Nick. I haven't got there yet, Nick.
What? What?
I haven't got there. I'm going to bring up the fact that it's weird that we haven't seen Kratos. I'm going to bring that up.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking it's a dream. I'm thinking it's a dream sequence.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't think it was a dream sequence at all, but you do bring up a good point. I should mention the fact that when he blacks out, there is this white light and he hears Faye's voice.
Yes.
But it happens to be Sigrun that is actually waking up Atreus. And I think it's just that near-death experience where you don't go towards the light. You know, like where they say, you know, like near-death experiences, they say you'll see a light and you may hear a familiar voice, but don't go to that light. I think that was Atreus's moment where he saw the light. He may have heard his dead mother, by the way, and then just he wasn't ready to pass on at that time and he woke up in the camp. I never thought this was a dream sequence at all.
Really? I thought everything was too good to be true. So I was waiting for a moment where we find out that everyone has died because of Ragnarok. That was literally what I was gripping myself for. So it's funny to me that you literally had no inkling of that whatsoever because everything seemed too good to be true at this point. And I wasn't really sure what was going on with Freyr too.
I just thought it was weird that Freyr, no one was like, oh, crying about Freyr. Although we do see Lunda talk about Freyr and they're sharing stories about him to remember him. But we also see Mimir and Atreus. They share some sweet words. Atreus lets Mimir know what his relationship means. He actually says that, you know, Mimir was like his father. So it's really, really sweet. I thought this. So for me, that was something sunk in. I found this walk, so I didn't think it was a dream sequence, but what I did feel like is somehow Kratos had died or somehow he's injured.
Yes,
because he was carrying Atreus. No one shows, like, I guess that he's hurt in your conversations with them as you go along the way, but it's actually Freya. She says you should see your father, and for some reason that just sunk in, like, oh my gosh, he's probably injured or about to die or something like that. And then when you see Mimir, it was just like, oh, these are like final words before like you get some bad news or something like that. So I thought it was leading to maybe Kratos was like seriously injured. Maybe he hid it from everyone, or maybe everyone knew that he was injured but just didn't want to break the news to Atreus. So I thought we were gearing up to find Kratos.
So my opinion is obviously skewed because I thought this was not real. So I was expecting to see Kratos almost like say goodbye to him, and then maybe Atreus wakes up and everyone is dead, or that Kratos is dead or something like that. I honestly, I just was not trusting anything that was happening throughout this scene.
Well, what does happen is you do see Fenrir and Angrboda, who you see Atreus and Angrboda share a cute moment where Atreus is holding his hands. And I think this confirms that it was Angrboda that he was talking about when you have feelings with someone. How does that work? So maybe this is a blossoming of a romantic relationship between the two of them. And Kratos interrupts and is like, oh, crap, I don't want to interrupt anything. But it's actually perfect timing because Angrboda wants to show the two of them something important.
My shrine in Jotunheim. She destroyed it. She didn't want us to know our fate.
We forged our own path because of her.
She went against her own people. Our people. To protect you.
Father, I need to talk to you about something. There are other giants out there, and I've got to find them. I think I know where to look, but they're my responsibility. I need to do this alone. I don't want to do it alone, but I need to. It's hard to explain.
Does it frighten you?
Yeah.
is why you must do it.
Like you taught me. Yeah.
We survive today because of your choices. Who to trust, who to call friend. Son, you are ready.
So Angrboda shows Kratos and Atreus another shrine she found. And it shows Faye destroying Atreus' shrine because she wanted to keep Atreus and Kratos' fate secret to them so they could follow their own path. And this is the reoccurring theme throughout the game. We hear Kratos talk about choosing your path. We hear that in the final moments with Odin. We hear Atreus talking about there's always a choice. And it's really Faye who was really channeling this message from the very beginning of 2018, before 2018's game, of making sure that you're following your own path. And that's what she did. She destroyed Atreus' shrine so they wouldn't know what happened. And I found some relief about this because I was wondering who destroyed Atreus' shrine from the beginning. I was wondering if it was Odin. I was wondering if it was Groa. Like, there was no backstory on to why it was destroyed. Like, and I think that was some of the mystery too. Like, we found it at the top of Jotunheim. So we find out actually Faye had more knowledge about all of this than we originally thought.
I thought it was Odin in the destruction of Jotunheim, which is why Atreus' shrine was destroyed. But I think it's a really touching moment that, you know, this whole game is about not following our fate, not following our destiny, making our own choices, making our own path and creating our own path. And to see that Faye kind of believed this all the way along and wanted her husband and her son to figure it out themselves was just a touching moment because we haven't seen too much of her. We've only seen these flashbacks in this game, but in the end, she helped them quite a bit.
Yeah, she did. And I think in this moment as well, when they realize, it gives Atreus the courage because before Kratos interrupted Atreus and Angrboda, Atreus was talking about he wants to tell his father something, but he doesn't know how to. And I think now with this realization of Faye actually having both Atreus and Kratos' best interest in mind from the very start, it gives Atreus some comfort and also helps him tell his father that he wants to go find the other giants and restore them, but he also wants to do it alone. And this is it's crazy because this now he is breaking this father-son journey and now just wanting to go out alone. I think it's a real representation that he's ready. You know, like Kratos has talked about the fact that he wants to make sure that Atreus is ready. And for Atreus to be able to vocalize to his father, he is ready for this journey. He's ready to go out and do it all alone. I think just shows that he's matured and he is now a young man.
All roads led to this moment, right? This is what we've been kind of paving the way for this entire game. Atreus being his own man and making his own choice here to find the giants by himself or with Angrboda, whoever, but leaving his dad behind is an important thing for him. You know, we all were under the assumption that Kratos was really teaching Atreus to be on his own because we all thought that Kratos was going to die in the end. He doesn't end up dying, which is a relief to all of us, I think, but also he still prepared his son to be alone and be on that quest by himself. So it's nice to see that he made that decision because I think he's now finally prepared to spread his wings.
Yeah. And it shows also how much Kratos means to Atreus. Like, it is a heartfelt goodbye. They embrace. You see the emotions on both of their face. I'm pretty sure Kratos is crying, but you can never tell with him because he just hides it so well. But as you see Atreus leave, you see Kratos just looking at the son that he has, that now has become a young man and who's going to go out on his own journey. And it just really feels full circle at this moment. And we see Angrboda also give Atreus the marbles. So I also want to recognize that Kratos is probably hella confused as well.
Oh, yeah.
He knows nothing about
anything.
these marbles. He didn't know about Jormungandr. Like, he knows nothing. So he's probably like, okay. Like, it also takes a lot for him to be like, all right, I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay.
So isn't it nice to see, Cam, that Kratos, after everything he's been through, managed to raise a child and raise a child with good morals? To me, from the start of all of God of War, where he kills his daughter and his wife, and now has all these roads has led to this point. Like, it's really touching. However, a lot of things happen all at once where I'm still like, I feel like I'm not even prepared for this. Everything that happened, and then Atreus is just like, okay, peace. And I feel like I'm not even accepting of this, and Kratos is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny how the game makes you feel that way, I think, because they packed so much in these final sequences where you're still processing the information.
Yes.
So it like puts you in the perspective of Kratos, where it's like you don't even know what's going on, but you know you have to be supportive, and that's exactly what he does. And we see Atreus leave for his journey, and that's almost the end of the chapter. So after this break, we're going to break down this plus more and discover another secret Faye was hiding.
What did you see in there, brother? A path. One I had never imagined.
And what now?
There is much to do. Much to rebuild. Would you join me?
Aye. We'll see to it. Together.
So after Atreus leaves, Kratos ends up walking around the cave as though it's like his home and he's having like empty nest syndrome. Like he's just like looking around like, oh, well, this is it. It's just him. But it is that moment where I think he's realizing it is just him, right? And it was always him and Atreus for so long. And he's kind of back to that moment. But as he walks around the cave and he starts closing up the shrine, he realizes there's another story at the back of it. And this time it's a story of Kratos arriving from Greece in his original God of War gear. And instead of the death that we've seen in Atreus' shrine, he is now being praised by people. In this moment right here, I think it reflects that he has finally become a god. We heard Odin before question whether Kratos is actually a god because there is no one that worships him. He has no people. And in this shrine, we see actually it looks like he's on a platform and people are looking up at him. And I think that was just such a heartfelt moment because, like Kratos said, he's never seen a path like this that would have been possible because he's known as the God Killer.
Yeah, the God Killer, the destroyer of worlds. I think Zeus or some other god told him at some point in the original games that he will never be loved. He will never be worshipped. The people will never worship him. So to see that is incredible. However, I didn't know what this meant when I first saw it. And I actually had to go look it up because I saw Kratos' face glow up and I was like, what is this? I've never seen his face look like this. What exactly am I seeing? And I didn't really understand it. So first I had thought, whoa, what does this mean? Is this our next game? Like, are we going to Egypt? Is he in Egypt right now? Is he being worshipped in Egypt? And it's like, is that why he's saying there's much to do? So I had no idea what it was, but it was only until I had looked it up. And, I think I looked up like meaning of the ending of God of War Ragnarok to understand that he was being worshipped by the people of Midgard for rebuilding basically the realm. Or the realms, and it was really touching to know that. I was looking for more. It wasn't as necessarily as something that I thought, but I was really happy with that ending. It was really touching.
It was. And yeah, you're right. I don't think it was that obvious.
No.
I kind of got it, but yeah, I did have to also look up like were there hints of potential other mythologies in here.
Yeah.
I don't believe so, but the fact that he was just able to go from, I think, someone who didn't know who he wanted to be or didn't necessarily believe that he could be a god. I think that also plays into it as well, just because he falls, he talked about falling into old habits, and like Thor did, he could have fell into his old habits of vengeance. But now with everything that he's been through, now seeing a son that he was able to raise, and when you think back to 2018's game, I don't think he even knew he would be able to raise a son himself, right?
No, yeah.
The fact that he was able to kind of come out of that and have this moment that reassures him that he was on the right path, I think is very touching. From there, you do see that he joins Freya and Mimir, and they're ready to continue their adventures themselves. But I gotta ask you, before we wrap up here, were you surprised that Kratos didn't die? Because I was.
I was surprised that Kratos didn't die. I actually am surprised at how happy of an ending it ended up being. I really thought there was going to be more loss here. Whoever it was, maybe even if Kratos didn't die, I was still banking on the fact that Kratos wasn't going to die in case they want to continue this series or franchise, unless they wanted to continue it with Atreus. But I was actually under the assumption that Atreus was going to be the one that was going to die. So my thought throughout was that Atreus was going to end up saving his father, even though his father didn't want saving. That's my guess. On a lighter note, too, definitely that if we ever see a next game here, that Kratos is going to have another child with Freya. 1,000%.
Okay, I don't know about that.
Oh, come on. The sexual chemistry
I don't think
is
so.
right there.
What? There's nothing there.
Outta
I do not get that at all. But I will say, it's actually interesting to hear you say that you thought Atreus was going to die. I didn't think that would happen. That'd be like horrible for this guy to lose 2 kids. Heck no, they couldn't do that. But I think the fact that we were expecting for a dark ending, I think also plays into the story of this god who is known for, just death that surrounds him, whether he's killing or the people around him dying, sets that expectation that it has to be a dark ending. So I kind of like that they went in this direction where it was a happy ending. There is that growth, and knowing that a happy ending could even happen for this god of war that has sacrificed so many sad stories, and people in his lives could actually come out of it and look forward to something. But with that said, that is it for God of War Ragnarok. Kind of. We did have Asgard, pieces of Asgard fall into the realms all over the place, and that kind of leaves new adventures to go on. So in next episode, we'll dive into other endings that come from that and talk more about our thoughts about what's next for Kratos and Atreus next time on AutoSave. AutoSave is produced and hosted by Nick Andrade and myself, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Zeiser. Technical production by Greg Fillion. Executive producer Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at AutoSave Podcast on Twitter and AutoSave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now. And if it happens to be Apple Podcasts, kindly leave us a rating and a review, but only if it's good. AutoSave is a Soda original hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.